Hi, friends, and welcome to this week's 10 to 20 Talk Radio. My name is Kristen Dokas, and this week we're talking to author Galit Breen about her new book, Kindness Wins. Kindness Wins covers 10 habits to directly teach kids as they're learning how to be kind online, which is an absolute must in the world of today, in today's world of using social media and the ever-increasing cyberbullying that they are facing. Hi, Galit.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So let's just dive right into this. I want you to tell the story of what led you to writing this book. And it's interesting because I actually witnessed or read the blog post that started this and
Okay.
witnessed the whole thing happen. I don't even think I knew you at the point. So
I
it's
don't
kind of
think you
interesting.
did.
Yeah, it's kind of
No.
interesting to that we're here now. But introduce yourself to everyone, tell them about you, and then let's just start talking about what happened.
Okay. So I had been freelancing for about 6 years. And after my husband and I celebrated our 12th anniversary, I did kind of what we writers do. And I wrote a little tidy article, 12 secrets that happily married women know on the Huffington Post. And I did what, of course, we're told not to do, which is to not look at the comments. But I went because at that point, I could handle someone disagreeing with me about my thoughts on marriage, right? I mean, that wasn't something that was going to bother me 6 years in. But what I ended up seeing was that people weren't really talking about my article or about marriage. They were talking about my weight and how I looked in my wedding dress in a picture that I had shared in the post. So, of course, like I think anyone would, I went to a really sad place. I mean, a really, really sad place. I kept checking. I wanted to see if anyone would maybe tell those people to stop or how many people were saying that. I kind of kept a little tally of how people were doing that. But I knew that I was just in too sad of a place to do anything about it then. So I screen capped 3 of the comments just to kind of save them on my desktop until I could get to a better place. And a couple of months later, I did. And I wrote a second article. And that article just called out my cyberbullies. It said we should not be talking about people's bodies. And it just called for online kindness. And that article went viral. So I think that actually says a lot of really good things about our world, that that's the message that went viral.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to have a thought on that.
Yes.
Are you familiar, or had you heard of, I told you this is like a conversation. There was an app that came out called Burn Book. Did you
Yes.
hear about Burn Book?
Yes. I think I heard about it actually from you.
Oh, okay.
I
And
think you
then it's
posted about
gone
it.
now. Because I was asking my daughter, I said, "Hey, do you guys have
Really?
that?" But what made me think of what you were just saying is that a lot of schools were using it for the exact opposite. They
Right.
were, even some of the parents were getting on saying things, "You go, girl," and here's your positive affirmation for the day. And part of my heart wants to think that that we're starting to kind of get sick and tired of this,
I think so
especially in the
too.
blogging world. There are
Mhm.
some mean people. I got hit with it a couple of weeks ago myself, not nearly to the extent that you did, but
Mhm.
um, unfortunately, the realism of it is what happened to you. So go back and finish the story. So I just wanted to throw that in there about Burn Book.
No, I love that you threw that in there because it's not just my small issue, right? I mean, it's our kids are dealing with it every day. Writers are dealing with it every day. And the problem is if those of us who are in social media, we know, we get it, we've been there. But a lot of people aren't, and so they don't know, and so their kids don't know because they haven't been taught,
Right.
right? So really, really important. But my own daughter asked to be online. And that is when I suddenly realized, okay, this is not just something that could happen to me. This could happen to our kids. And so I started looking at the kids that I knew, social media accounts, and that was almost like peeling a layer off of social media, the things that they were doing online, saying online. Some of it, I'm sure, for sure, possibly to be unkind, but some of it was honestly and truly nice kids, great parents. They just didn't know. They didn't know how far reaching their games that they were playing and the comments they were making and the actions that they were doing, how far reaching they were. And so that's when I thought, okay, I can do this. I can take my experience in social media. I can take my 10 years of teaching and my master's in education. I can put it together and I can create something that would make a better space online for all of us.
And I think you hit a really important piece of it. It's the education. And
Mhm.
I don't remember when the day is that we all start talking to our kids about don't be a bully, right?
Right, right.
Whether it's you see another child being mean to another child, that you turn to your kid and go, okay, now we need to have this conversation.
Yes.
The world is not a beautiful place. I mean, it is a beautiful place, but it has very dark corners in it.
Absolutely.
And, there's so many more lessons that we have to teach our kids and ourselves as parents, right?
Yes.
And we also have to show them by our own actions.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
the danger of what this world is the anonymity of it.
Hmm.
It is, people will say something behind a screen that they would never say to your face.
And you know what's so funny is everybody said that to me when that everything happened to me. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's just because they're anonymous, right?" But guess what? Those three, the comments that I screen capped, weren't anonymous.
Yeah.
They had no problem having their Facebook attached to it, their profile, their little faces right there, and their names. No problem doing it. I think it's more than just the guise of anonymity. It's just this freedom that we just have because of what you said, the education. We just haven't talked about it. We haven't had a chance to just sit down and say, "Hey, these are the things that are okay online, and these are the things that are not," and be that explicit and that direct about it.
I ended up writing a blog post, and I was essentially parent shamed, right? And I wrote a very, what I thought at the time, not a kind response. It wasn't a mean response. It was a response that wasn't directly attacking that person, but looking back on it, it still was, right? By me coming out at all and saying, "Hey, this is blah blah blah," and I got called out on it, and hindsight being 2020, I should have just let it go. I should have just completely, but I tried to turn it into, here are 10 lessons I want my kids to learn from it, which is, don't say something to somebody online that you wouldn't say to their face,
Yes.
and I tried to make it life lessons, but again, it was it was the right message at the wrong time. It should, because it was, somebody essentially came out and said how much I hate parenting. And I'm like, who are you to say that to me? But, I turned around and did the same thing. And my friend Jenny Dietrich, who is a PR, public relations professional. She has a post from last week on her blog talking about how all of us as professionals and people really need to sign a code of conduct and stop shaming each other. So I mean, I just thought what you went through. I mean, what happened to you is what every blogger wants. You had that post that went viral, and then, as always happens, don't read the comments and hear, So
The post that went viral was the one where I was calling out my bullies, not the first one, not the marriage one. It was the second one. But I wanted just to say about what you were just saying. Yes, we have to have a code of conduct in how we treat each other, but it is okay to speak up when someone is unkind to you. That is something we tell our kids to do it all the time. Why can't we do it online? Can we do it kindly? Can we do it professionally? And can we do it ethically? Yes, we can. But I don't think that we should be told not to speak up. I think that when I spoke up, that is when things got better for me. It is when I was silent that things were hard for me.
And that's a very good point. And that is a very good point. It's, I guess my mistake was addressing why I was doing it. I don't know. I felt comfortable. I thought it was a good post that I did. I see what other people point of view, and you're always going to have that person that disagrees. Always. I mean, no matter what you say, they're going to be like, "Well, you shouldn't have done that." Well,
but how are we going to create any change if we don't speak up?
And I
don't know. I don't know that I think you did anything wrong. I think I got your back here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
You're
that. So after the dust settled on that, you decided to take it a step further and write the book. Walk us through that process
of writing the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd
you come up with the 10 points? Let's go there.
Let's go there. Okay. So I started off with what I knew from my 6 years of experience, right, of being online. And then I used my time as a teacher and having a master's in education to kind of guide the how-to. But it was when I went online to look at kids' accounts, that's when I saw the things that we need to talk about, the kind of actions that are not, I do talk about overt bullying, like the things that you do that are just truly directly unkind. But there's also a lot of subtle things that happen and that leave kids feeling very alone and very isolated and bullied, even though the person doing it might have not intended to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I go into all of that. And so I kind of kept a little file on my computer. I just kind of kept a lot of notes on it. I ran a lot of things by my own kids. Hey, what do you guys think about that? How does that feel as a kid versus an adult with all my baggage, right?
Right.
I had them help me. Like if I went in the suggestions that I have, well, here's how I would respond. What would you guys do? And they often had different ideas than I did. And that was wonderful because that made it more real, right? So it was a fast process. I wrote it in 6 months, but it was 6 months. That is all I did. My daughter was on a new volleyball team, and I joked around that the coaches probably thought I wasn't really in the picture because I just wasn't there ever. This is all I did. And I was very lucky, and I approached a small publisher, Book Trope Publishing, and they agreed to take me on. And so that's the process.
I think it's just such an important book, and I'm so glad that that you've done it. And these are lessons that just cannot be stressed enough how important they are. And your kids were good with it. They enjoyed it. How do they? You know, has now that your daughter's online, has she been witness to any of these situations herself?
It's so interesting that you asked that because she has not seen anything overt. She's not, and when I check her account and I look at the kids that she follows and that follow her and that follow me and that I follow back, nothing overt, nothing direct, like that. But a lot of the subtle things, and she would not have noticed them. She would have kind of gotten them ingrained in her head as normal if we had not talked about them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Such as what?
Such as what? So like I talk about this in the book. A lot of kids list who their best friends are in their bio and their description on Instagram. So if let's say everybody decides they're mad at someone, then one day they're listed, the next day they're deleted, right? Or let's say everybody's having a big, huge sleepover, and so let's post a picture and tag everybody but one girl, right? Or I saw this a lot of times, like just to post somebody snagged someone else's photo, and then just label, oh, there's my bestie or whatever they said, and then you see in the comments, I thought I was your best friend, right? None of these kids are doing anything on purpose to be mean. For the most part, I don't think they are. I really don't. But they don't know. They don't know how loud that is for the girl who's left out or deleted and not being called out as the best friend.
I actually had one of our longtime school family friends. I was on a conversation with her, and apparently that same thing happened a few weeks ago with my daughter and another. And well, the setup on this was that there was the third person, not my friend's daughter. So we have we have my daughter Cassie, then we have the other kid, and we have the new kid. So the new kid and our friend's child apparently used to be really good friends, but you know how girls are. They change friends like they change underwear. I mean, it's always somebody new, and it's not that they fall out of love with each other. It's just, it's bright, new, shiny. So the new kid and my daughter, Cassie, Cassie pops up. She goes, Mom, can we go see 5 Days of, what is the band? Isn't that awful? I don't know. 5 Days of Summer, whatever the new boy band is that came out last year. Apparently they're touring. And I was like, okay. I was working, so I was in the middle of, and she asked me this. Well, apparently she took that and ran. And said essentially, oh, me and my bestie are going to the 5 Days of Summer concert. Da 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 da. Well, our family friend's mom called me, and she goes, really upset her. I said, oh, I'm sure it did. But like you said, it's very innocent. They're excited about this, and they forget that all eyes are on them.
Until we talk about it.
And
then they know. And I think so powerful about what you just said is the mom called you.
Yes,
I talk about that a lot in the book. Let's talk to each other. Let's help each other. I'm not just going to watch out for my kid and you're going to watch out for your kid. We're all going to watch out for each other's kids. But we're all safer.
But I also think it's a good lesson on the other side, too, to teach I don't think they should hide everything. It's also a good lesson to tell them, but you have to understand, you can't be friends with everybody all the time. Okay. So, that's what I told her. I said, just be careful, if first of all, I never said you were going. Second of all, be, conscious, you're cognizant that what you're saying might actually get out to a friend that may not be going. That being said, I'm not saying that so it's the other side of it too, which is you don't have to hide, just remember.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's just a conversation.
Yes.
Just help them think that there's more people looking at it than just them, right? And the person that they tag, and that how far reaching it can be. It's just the conversation. It's not like I say in there, you have to do this and you can't do this, because I don't know what's right for your family. And I don't know what's right for your kid. And the truth is, and we should just admit this, not everything's going to hurt everybody in the same way.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? We have to just acknowledge that not everybody is built the same way and feels the same way, and that's okay. But let's just always remember that there's other people watching and there's someone on the other side of it. I was going to say something about with what you said, but I forgot.
That's
if I remember, I'll pick it up.
It's just the conversations have to start earlier and earlier. They need to start before you hand over that first iTouch, iPhone, whatever, computer, iPad. Even if they have access to, as soon as they start communicating with other kids or any of these apps, because I'm sure 90% of parents are a little loose with the 13 and over guidelines with most social sites.
So here's what. I am actually an advocate for letting our kids online a little bit earlier than most people think that I would be. And this is why, because at a certain point, our kids will start valuing what their friends say a lot more than what we say. And if we wait until they're 13 to have these conversations with them, they're not going to be listening anymore. And at that point, it's going to be very, very hard to say, hey, let's talk about this. And here's what I think. It's not going to be impossible, but it's going to be different. Right now, when my daughter was 10 when she asked, it was so simple to say, hey, have very low privacy expectations. Dad and I get to see everything. And guess what? That means everybody gets to see everything. She doesn't think there's anything secretive about posting online. She leaves her phone sitting out. She doesn't care. Yeah. That's not the way she is. And when I say something, I say, hey, let's think about this. She's very open with me because she's 10. Or now she's 11. But she was 10 then. When she's 13, that's going to feel a little bit different. But by then, we'll already had a couple of years under our belt of these conversations. The expectation's going to be that we're open about this topic. And that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, well, let's take a real quick break here. Let everybody know if you have an idea or a topic for a show, maybe you're interested in potentially being a guest on our show, leave us a comment, email me at info@10to20parenting.com. And speaking of all these fun little social media sites, I'd like to take a break and with a word from our sponsor, Be On Your Way Travel, where you can take all those beautiful Instagram shots on the go. They do all your heavy lifting on planning so your vacation can actually be relaxing. Okay, thanks for that quick little break. So before we went off, we were talking about just the the conversations that that you have with the kids, and how's the reaction been from fellow bloggers, if you will? I know I've just watched it from afar, and everybody's super supportive of it. And the book comes out on what day? On tomorrow. April 7th, right? Well, today's April 6th, so tomorrow. But by the time it will have been a few weeks. We're in the future right now. So
amazing.
What about any national recognition for the book yet? Any attention yet?
It was featured on BuzzFeed, which was really exciting. Just kind of my whole story was, and then I was on local TV just this last Friday, and that was really exciting and fun. So yeah, it's been good. It's been exciting. All good responses, good questions, good conversations all around. So. And
what are you going to do with this new franchise of your world?
What do you mean by
are you going? I mean, do you foresee it becoming something that you turn into like a podcast, or will you create? I mean, I know you have your regular website, right? Your regular blog. Do you anticipate making this a business in itself?
I have scheduled several speaking engagements kind of locally, but I'm still a mom, and I'm a mom first. So I'm not really looking to travel anywhere right now. And I'm open. I'm very open to this. The conversation is wonderful and amazing, and I'm taking part of it whenever I can, like this, over Skype or Google Hangout, and we'll kind of see where it goes.
One of the things, how do you, going back to working with kids, what are some tips that you can give our parents or our listeners on ideas on how to work with your kids on being a responsible cyber citizen?
So that is the whole book, right? I mean, it's the 10 conversations that you need to have with your kids about this. But
don't give away everything, because we won't book sales.
But I will tell you this, and I think the most important thing to remember is that we're not going to have one conversation with our kids about this and be nice online and then be done with it. I liken it to teaching them how to drive, right? We wouldn't just be like, well, this is how you do it, and here's the keys, and good luck with that, right? You continue the conversation, you continue the practice, and so we have to give our kids those same chances to practice this, because they will make mistakes. They are kids, and they are going to be, at one point or another, I would guess all of our kids will be the bully, the one who's being bullied, and will be the bystander. And we can use each of those to help them, right? To help them move forward and do better. So I think the secret to teaching anything good, and I learned that as a teacher, is just to start with a direct lesson, the exact thing you want them to learn, give them a chance to practice, then come back together and talk about it, and then give them a chance to try again. And so it's repeated. It's over and over and over and over again, sometimes formally and sometimes in passing. That's probably my number one tip for how to teach kids anything.
When we were on break, we talked a little bit about communicating with other parents.
Yes.
I don't know where I saw, but it was just yesterday I saw it, and I meant to pass it on. there's a new ad of it's funny because when it starts, it's your classic mom against mom, that mom war, right? So you've got it's a park setting. Maybe you've seen this. It's like a 2-minute PSA. So you've got the stay-at-home moms versus the working moms. You've got the breastfeeding moms versus the formula moms. You've got the stay-at-home dads being bullied, chastised by the moms going, "Oh, what is the wifey on break?" And it's this whole thing where it's. I'm going to post it later. I might even post a link to it in this podcast. But then as they're all sitting there going beep, 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 to each other, one of the carriages, look, I sound like I'm British. One of the carriages, one of the strollers.
Own it.
Yeah. One of the strollers starts to, because the moms are so busy fighting with each other on who's the better mom, the stroller starts going down the hill, and all of a sudden, everything becomes insignificant, and every single parent's running after the stroller, right? Because, and I think the closing line was like, it doesn't matter how you do it, everyone is a parent, or something to that nature. So it's the same thing. Now, I think it's important too that you have to mirror the image, what you want your kids to act, how you want your kids to act. Yes. So, as parents, we can't sit there and be snarky ourselves because, of course, my kids aren't on Facebook because none of the cool kids are on Facebook, but they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, and it's like, especially Instagram, anything that has like the photo piece of it, where, and I don't know if you remember this a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's just been a couple of years ago when the whole trend of the girls that would post pictures on Instagram or something on YouTube and tell people to basically criticize them.
Like to rate me.
Yes.
That's still a trend right now.
And it's like, so what do you talk about that?
The rate me trend or the... I talk about that a little bit in the book, and I put it in this. I have a section in there about just here's the things that I just saw, and just in my little bit of research in my small group of friends and their kids, and then looking out a little bit further than that. And I would say that for each of the things that I saw, I can't tell you what will be best for your kid and for your family, but I will tell you that for my family, I told my kids, like, we don't really need that much external commentary, in our lives. Let's not participate in two things: in asking for it or in rating anyone else.
Yeah.
So they would have never known that it wasn't right, because then we talked about, let's talk about how that might make someone feel. One of the things I talked about with my older daughter is sometimes even when you get a compliment, that still makes you insecure because you're like, oh, they didn't mean it, or I only got one compliment, and so we just don't need necessarily to engage in that. It's just not necessary. But that's what's best for me because I'm really sensitive, and that's what's best for my kids because they are really sensitive. So I knew that for them. But that was a great conversation that we had. Why do you think some of your friends are participating in that? What are you going to do if they ask?
Right.
You're going to keep on scrolling is what you're going to do. That's what we talked about.
But some of them are so drawn to it, just like moths to the fire. They really, really are. And it's so sad because we as adults know that it comes from that insecurity, that need to be accepted and that need to have that constant. And in today's world with social media, I watch it with I have a special stream in my Hootsuite for kids that I don't like following my kids' friends on Twitter, but I like to keep an eye on them. And I think there's got to be a separation of church. I just don't. But I want to keep and just the amount of what is known as subtweeting that goes on. The passive aggressive, and it's just exhausting. It exhausts me as an outside observer.
So two things that I do advocate for being online with your kids. And when my kids' friends follow me, I follow them back. I don't follow anyone first just because I don't want to make them uncomfortable. But if they follow me, I follow them right back because it needs to be normalized that we're all there together. And I don't want the kids to have any thought in their heads that no one will see this. Everyone's going to see it. I'm right there with you. We're going to see it. I had a friend say that her daughter tweeted something. And then when her mom questioned her about it that night, nothing bad. She's like, oh, I saw that. She's like, well, how did you know? And she just had no concept that we could all see it once it's tweeted, So that I do advocate for that reason. And then also because I know that I was at a party once with our family, and the kids, for fun, were looking us all up. And there were all of my social media things for them to see. And they could just click and they could see exactly how I behave online. So if they're going to be looking anyway, I feel like we just need to act like we want, like they're looking, like we do in person. And so I mindfully am online. When I am online, I am assuming that they can look at any time because the truth is they can.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And, as a social media professional, that's what I do. I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. And it's interesting. The other conversation that I have with my kids is that Docus is not a common name. And if your presence on social media is of such that is inappropriate behavior, it looks bad on me as well.
True. We're all a reflection of each other,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And so, it's just that ongoing, hey, people have heard me say this. My kids are not innocent. I've had to make my daughter, my oldest one, delete some of the stuff that she puts out there. And I have every now and again, like, okay, really? We have to have this conversation again.
But they're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all do. I talk about that in the book a lot. Here are some things that I've done that really weren't okay. And someone was strong enough and smart enough and kind enough to tell me and say, hey, I didn't really like it when you did that, or I didn't think you should have done that. And I thought, oh my goodness, that was a wonderful lesson that you just gave me. We have to be safe enough to tell each other that, both to our kids should be able to tell us, and then to each other. It's so important.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, now that some time has passed, how do you feel about the people that originally attacked you online?
It's such a good question. And I was telling you earlier, no one has asked me that before. Very early on, a lot of people said to me, oh, you should feel sorry for them because they must come from a really bad place, or someone must have talked to them in really bad ways to make them think that's okay. And that is not how I felt. I didn't feel sorry for them at all. I had no sympathy at all. And I thought, no excuses. That's not how we act online, right?
Yeah, right.
And having gone through some time has passed since then, I really think that the onus, if it's truly that they came from a bad place and they truly had no idea that saying those kinds of things is inappropriate, then the onus is on the people who know them, who know better, and who can say to them, hey, that's not how we act online. That's not how you talk to women. That's not how you talk to each other. That's not what we do. So I put it on them. I think we spend so much time in our society blaming the victim. We tell our kids to find nicer friends. We tell our writers to not read the comments. And instead, we could be focusing on how do we make people kinder? How do we ensure that everybody's acting kinder? So I don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel sympathy for them, but I also don't think about them very often. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Like that, when the people like to, I made a choice to leave people's names in there, and I posted it, and people like that, and they post it too, and their names come up sometimes, often, right, to me, and I think about them in that moment, but I've never reached out to them, and it should be said they've never reached out to me either. So everybody who's feeling bad for them, it's not exactly like they're fixing, right?
Well, it's the blog post I was mentioning earlier in the program. One of the points that I made is don't let people live rent free in your head, because they're not thinking about you.
Absolutely. And I'm not, a lot of people ask me, how long did it take you to get over it? I wouldn't say I'm over it. I'm just not crying over it anymore, right? It still hurts to see those words. I see them and I kind of cringe, wow, that was really mean. And also thinking about my husband reading them, right? That's really, woo, right?
Or your kids.
I was going to say, explaining the whole situation to my kids, right? I wouldn't have had to if things didn't get a little bit bigger, but they know all about it. They know all about it. I had to tell them that. They had to see those words written about their mom. Right? So no, I wouldn't say I have any sympathy for them.
Yeah.
That's
good. Well, and good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done at this piece of it, at this point of the juncture. So here, I want you to tell everyone tell us your websites.
Okay.
The book comes out on April 7th. Or by the time this airs, came out on April 7th. So tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and find the book, where to buy the book, etc.
Okay. So my website is theselittle.waves.com, and everything that you need is right there. So I am on Facebook, and I am on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. I'm on all the places. My email address is there. I'd love to hear from you. My book is available in all the usual places, but you can find it right on my website, all the links to it. And it is both in digital and print form. And I would love to hear from you. So if you have any thoughts or comments or things you want to discuss, you can definitely just email me.
Awesome. Great. Well, then that's our show this week. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on either iTunes or Stitchers, and please leave us a review because that helps other parents find our podcast. Don't forget to leave a comment, and if you have a question, and remember, you can find these topics and others on our website at 10to20.com. All the links that we were just talking about, I will put in the blog post that goes with the podcast when it goes live, and our theme music is Sunshine from Kevin MacLeod. So I'm Kristen Dokes, and thanks to Galit for joining us. And until next week, remember that the time between 10 and 20 is really just an age and not a sentence.